Okay, so hello everyone, welcome to episode 2 of what I'm calling AI and Oats, which is my currently daily, hopefully we can keep that up, show where I answer AI questions while eating a bowl of porridge, hence the name. And so I've had Codex scouring the web all day for good questions about AI, and then it's put them into this document for me to answer. Ideally the questions would come from our comments, but given the small state of our YouTube channel right now, we've had to synthesize them from the internet. So that does mean if you do comment, there's almost a 100% guarantee that I will answer your question, so there's your incentive. But just very quickly, who am I? Well, I'm Alistair. This is my YouTube channel where I teach people how to use Claude Code and Codex for knowledge work. But I also run an AI consulting and training business called Dux. And if you'd like to work with me one-on-one to see where AI can fit into your business and for me to help you implement it, or if you'd like one-to-one coaching to help set up your own AI operating system in Claude Code or Codex, please check out the links below in the description. Or if you'd like to join my school community where I share all my AI knowledge and my Claude skills and all my systems, again, check out the links in the description below. But anyway, that's the preliminaries out the way. So let's dive into the questions. Am I using Codex differently? I ran 2 GPT 5.6 Sol extra high agents for 8 hours and only used 40% weekly. I don't think that is that high, to be honest. I mean, if anything, I think GPT 5.6 Sol is like very good in terms of limits generally. Like, I think Codex is better in terms of limits than Anthropic, better than Claude Code. I use GPT 5.6 on high or extra high pretty much all day, especially at the moment. I'm doing loads of remote sessions with Codex from my phone. And I almost never hit usage limits. I think the only time I've had a usage limit issue with Codex is when 5.6 Sol first came out, and I just wanted to test exactly what it could do, so I thought it would be a good idea, or I'm not sure I thought it was a good idea, an interesting experiment basically to let it run all night on Ultra Code, or Ultra as they call it, and see if it could come up. I think I was trying to get it to invent a product, like a D2C e-commerce product, and then come up with as many marketing campaigns as it could and test them against each other, all hypothetical. And then I was also having it I used Codex as like a personal trainer, which is quite a fun use case I found for it. So I was also having it analyze a lot of videos, also on GPT 5.6 Sol Ultra and on fast mode, just to see what the absolute max was that it could do. That was probably not intelligent. I did hit limits, but the nice thing about Codex is you've got limit resets, which is a very good feature. And anyway, since then though, for my actual practical usage, using it on extra high and high most days, pretty much all the time, I never really have rate limit issues. I think these new models, I think top tier intelligence models right now, like 5.6 Sol, Opus 5, Fable 5, are so good at orchestrating sub-agents that as long as you have a very intelligent model plan, you don't have to really worry about rate limits too much, because have a very intelligent model plan, have it execute and orchestrate with cheaper sub-agents, and then have an intelligent model check at the end. And yeah, if you're feeling a bit more generous with token spend, have it do that, with loops. You'll get a better result, but you will use more tokens. And to be honest, I kind of advocate for, if you're on the plans, try to get as much usage out of your tokens as possible. Push your rate limits as much as you can, keeping some in the tank, just in case something happens, because they're so heavily subsidized that it's worth it. If you're doing API costs and stuff, I don't really believe in just token maxing for the sake of token maxing. Don't focus on how many tokens you're spending, focus on the actual output you're getting and try to do it as token efficiently as possible, because I think learning how to be token efficient is an important skill for when it comes to actually implementing systems where you are going to want to be token efficient, because they're probably going to be running on APIs. Anyway, a bit of a tangent there, but hopefully that kind of addressed that topic. Felt interesting at least. Right. I like the look of this one. How to get Claude Code to obey instructions. Right, I guess that's a pretty good question, and quite important, because there's almost nothing more annoying than when you're working with Claude Code, or Codex for that matter, and it just ignores you. I would say, I guess you kind of have a couple ways to look at it. You've got kind of soft influence over Claude, and then I guess hard, more deterministic stuff. So I guess the first thing I'd say in terms of like the soft influence is make sure that you have a really sort of clear, concise Claude.md, keep it within like the 200 line recommendation that Anthropic say, make sure it doesn't have any contradicting points within it, because if it is contradictory or very long, Claude is going to get confused and it's less likely to follow the kind of best practices you put in there. And then I also make sure I direct Claude within its Claude.md, like I'll direct it to a rules markdown file. I'll like tag that within the Claude.md and we'll go look at that, and I have a bunch of guideline files attached to the Claude.md, or kind of their paths are directly mentioned in the Claude.md, so it knows when to go look at those. I have a whole video on Claude.md on my channel, so I say having a good Claude.md is one way to encourage Claude to get better outcomes, but it's not necessarily going to do it absolutely. So I guess the other ways you could do it are hooks would be one of the, I guess hooks are probably the most kind of hardcore way to do it, or most deterministic way, because you know you can have a stop hook, so when Claude ends it can ensure that it's met certain criteria or something. So I have a stop hook, I think, on Claude Code that makes sure if it's kind of edited any code, once it's finished that turn, it actually goes back and checks what it's done to make sure that it wasn't just sort of a surface level papering over the cracks fix. It was an actual address of any root cause issue and that sort of thing. I guess I'd say the other thing is like making sure you have sort of tests, like clear tests for Claude to pass, which count as done. And I think that's becoming perhaps easier to implement, or certainly kind of more important with the rise of loop engineering as well, because if you are doing something like loop engineering where you're going to use like a goal command, you're going to want very clear criteria of what counts as done, and having those very clear criteria of what counts as done means that, you know, if you're going to loop Claude until it, or Codex for that matter, until it hits those criteria, especially if, as long as you don't have it kind of checking its own work, where it tends to be a bit more biased, but as long as you have a kind of very aggressive sub-agent reviewing it, and you have those clear tests for it to pass, then in that case, if you've got a loop set up that it keeps going until it hits those tests, that makes it much more likely to obey the instructions in terms of getting the outcome you want. And actually, in terms of loop engineering and aggressive sub-agents critiquing Claude, I read a very interesting article by Matt Schumer this morning about his gauntlet loop, he calls it, which he used with Opus 5. He made basically a clone of Call of Duty, which is very cool, and I'd recommend you check out the article. But yeah, I might make a video about the gauntlet loop. It's an interesting sort of enhancement on loop engineering, and I'll probably do a loop engineering video as well soon, because I've been setting up a lot of loops. In fact, this Codex thing is a loop, a self-improving loop essentially, that goes and tries to find better questions and better topics every day. And yeah, loops, I know I guess maybe it's sort of a trite thing to say, but I do feel like loop engineering is becoming the new thing now. And yeah, I'm really enjoying all the loops I'm setting up, so I'll probably make a video about that at some point. What should someone learn next when everyday AI use still feels like beginner territory? So I guess this is saying going beyond things like research and emails and Claude Code apparently, but still feeling overwhelmed. Right. I mean, my approach to kind of what to learn with AI things is, I think the best approach to take is assume that they can do everything, even though they can't do everything, and then push them as hard as you can to get them to do everything you want, but be very critical of them when you're doing it, and realize when they can't do it, because at least that way you get a better sense of sort of mapping the frontier. So, I don't know, I think, as I was saying, with the popularity of loop engineering coming up, the next thing, try to set up some sort of scheduled loop that's going to self-improve, so it will have a skill, and then, you know, depending on your feedback or that sort of thing, set up a skill. It will improve the skill or refine the skill over time. I think learning that sort of, you know, self-improving skill, scheduling it so it becomes automated, is really where I would recommend everyone starts trying to go with tools like Claude Code and Codex. So, like, one thing I've been setting up recently is I have a Claude Code loop called like daytime operator or something like that. And essentially what it does is it looks at my kind of tasks.md of all the stuff that I have just waiting to be done on all my various sort of projects and that sort of thing. And then it's influenced by that. And I actually want mine to be quite creative, so I tell it not just to check off the next thing on the task.md, but be influenced by task.md, think about the broad goals of like what I'm trying to do with my projects, with ducks, my company, and think about what is the highest leverage thing it could do autonomously. And then it has a loop that comes up with a very clear plan that can be executed by sub-agents. So originally I set this up for Fable 5, I've now switched it to Opus 5, and then it loops until it has a plan that can be executed, and then it loops until it's executed that plan and meets the criteria it's set, which count as being done. And it's not always perfect, but then once it's run, once I kind of come and attend to it at the end of the day, I give it feedback on how it's done, and then it improves its skill and decision making based on that. So that's quite cool. Like today, I think I had filmed a YouTube video, and today it decided the highest leverage thing to do was to make the thumbnail. So luckily when I came back, when I went to upload that video, it had already made the thumbnail for me. So that was pretty cool. And so yeah, that's what I guess I would say is like push the models as hard as you can, assume they can do everything even though they can't, because then you learn the frontier of where they are right now. And what that allows you to do is come back in like 2 months, 3 months, and realize that they can probably do what they can do, and that's a very fun feeling. And then the other thing is, I'd say like right now loop engineering is the hot topic, so just check that out. I'll see if I can show the Claude loop, the daytime operator thing. Worth showing it. Right, I mean, yeah, so what it does is there's a much more detailed prompt.md that it then reads, but it's essentially so yeah, I like to pick a very intelligent model like Opus 5 or Fable 5 to strategize, and then it picks a mission, plans it, and then builds it, researches it, well, not in that order, researches it, builds it, and then logs the decisions and reviews so that I can come back once it's done. And then I have a skill for, like, if I look at what it's done today, and then I actually have an afternoon one that runs as well, just in case the morning one for whatever reason didn't run or didn't finish. Because if I'm going to let it loop like this autonomously, I do cap the kind of number of turns it can do, just so it doesn't burn all my tokens, especially when I had it on Fable 5. So what did it decide to do today? Yeah, so what it did today is actually put together an entire like uploading package for the video that I had filmed and edited last night or something along those lines. Like, checked all the claims I made. Some of it's complaining about some of them, which because clearly the transcript it heard was incorrect, but you know, it's not absolutely perfect. But yeah, I put together kind of everything I needed to upload it, which is very useful when I then went to upload it remotely in Codex, because all the things were there already. But then basically what I have is like a daytime review skill that just sort of says like, oh, I'm signed out. Right, well, I've been signed out of my Claude Code account rather annoyingly on the desktop app while I was away. So I'm not going to... So I won't show the skill now, but since the loop runs every weekday, I'll probably show it tomorrow or another day. But yeah, basically, the point of the review is to make the loop self-improving. Because it's more qualitative than quantitative, obviously I give it feedback kind of manually through that skill, and then the main skill of kind of strategizing each day improves based on my feedback. Obviously, if you had a more kind of qualitative thing, like if you were running a marketing loop or something like that, where you have actual metrics from marketing campaigns, then you don't have to do the sort of manual feedback to make the loop self-improving. But yeah, went off again on a bit of a tangent, but I'd say check out loop engineering as sort of the next thing beyond everyday AI use. And also, I guess, loop engineering and just feeling confident giving AI a bit more autonomy and stuff, like letting it use browser automation. I feel like browser automation is what really makes agents feel very powerful, because browser automation allows them to do almost anything, especially now that there's the browsers within the desktop apps, both for Codex and Claude Code. That's a very nice update. What is actually worth automating with Claude and what should stay human? I mean, the obvious answer is things like taste, judgment, like responsibility and risk all have to stay human to some degree. But I guess that's fairly obvious. I feel like what is worth automating is a bit of a tricky question, because I'd say with the models, kind of as I said, push them to do almost everything, but that I wouldn't say push them to automate everything. I'd say push them to augment everything first, like use them to augment you and your ability and kind of leverage your output per unit time, because you can parallelize multiple sessions, and in many ways they're actually kind of more efficient at using computers than humans. You know, you can use remote sessions, like you can be on your phone and have Codex running locally on your laptop. You can be, you know, in central London like I was today, but still running Codex sessions on my laptop at home, and it was still getting work done and that sort of thing. So augment yourself to the max, I would say, with these tools. And I'd say don't automate anything you haven't done augmented first, in a way. So likewise with kind of making skills, I mean, I'm slightly guilty of this sometimes, but really the best way to make skills is not to dive straight into making a skill. Don't just say I want to make a skill or I want to set up an automation. I would say do it once, kind of properly, do the process augmented with Claude Code or with Codex, walk through it together, then say, okay, cool, what we've done here is good, let's take this process and make it into a skill. And then if the skill is kind of highly interactive, like, I don't know what would be interactive, like maybe it's kind of like an interview based process for like coming up with content, that skill that's then going to write in your voice. That skill might be more interactive and iterative and collaborative. There's not a whole lot of point of automating that, certainly not automating it end to end. Maybe you automate parts of it like research or that sort of thing. But I'd say any skill that you know is going to be repeated and you're happy with the way the skill is, or you're happy to set up a loop that's going to improve the skill, that's the sort of thing you can automate. So like this, I have this automated because what it does is it scrapes the web for interesting questions, builds the kind of board in this style for me to go through them, puts together kind of a research markdown file showing all the day's questions and like where they're from, and then builds this HTML artifact for it. And then that means that just every day I can just come here in the evening, the board's ready to go, I just hop on and answer the questions. So that sort of thing, if it's a skill, you're happy with the process. But that's the thing, I did that initially, yesterday, I sort of went through that process of having Codex research, create the board, design the board, that sort of thing manually. But then today was automated, and it's also part of a loop that's meant to be self-improving. Like it looks at, what topics I think are good each day, and then tries to get closer to those in the future. That's the kind of thing I think it makes sense to automate, because research, that sort of stuff is because the research sort of happens in the same way each time, and then there's still the opportunity for feedback. So I think that works well to automate. But yeah, I would say that a lot of the benefit comes, I feel like there might be a little bit too much of a tendency towards automation, where often augmentation, if you're just highly leveraging the kind of time you spend working so that you're way more productive with that work because you're using so many like agent sessions in parallel, then I feel like that's almost more effective than automations. But stuff that is going to happen and is not overly complex and doesn't need a whole lot of your input, go ahead and automate that. That was a bit rambly, but hopefully that was clearing some things up. But hopefully it contains some useful information. Right, so I think that's it for today. Possibly a bit of a longer episode today, might have rambled a bit too much, but thank you for watching if you did make it all the way to the end. And yeah, come back tomorrow for more AI and porridge. And yeah, if you'd like to work with me one-on-one or join our school community, then check out the links in the description. And if you just want to learn more about Codex and Claude Code, then please subscribe. Thanks for watching.